Hello and welcome to the Flourishing Introvert Talks with me, Jo Rawbone. This is the podcast that celebrates the natural gifts of introverts so that we can flourish in all situations. Episode 235. Flourishing on your terms. After all, that's the only way it works. Now, don't get me wrong, you can go through life on other people's terms, but flourishing only happens on your terms. Yet too often we bend ourselves out of shape trying to please someone else, especially those of us with a high please others driver. But honestly, the only way to flourish is to do it your way. I know that sounds kind of obvious, but even when talking with my accountability buddies recently, the urge to conform, please and/or appease can still be strong. Just a few episodes ago, I explored the flourishing mindset and unpacked the mindset needed to meet each of the aspects of Lynn Soot's definition of flourishing. I found I've returned to this episode again and again since I recorded it, and I think it will become a classic in my body of work. But there's something else that resonated deeply with me this weekend. As talking with my bro, Paul, I mentioned again how life really is a roller coaster and then said from nowhere, and the art is knowing when to throw your arms in the air and when to hang on tightly to the safety rail. As I said it, I knew there was something significant, profound even, and that it had to do with flourishing. So in this season 20 finale episode, I'm reflecting on some of the key messages of the season through the lens of a roller coaster ride, or the peaks and valleys of life, as Soot refers to them. You see, no matter how planned and risk-averse we may be as introverts, we also need to enjoy the ride. Ultimately, life is for enjoying, not a hardship, a chore, or something to be got through. I've shared before that one of my much loved passages and a bit of a guide for my own life comes from the controversial journalist and author Hunter S. Thompson, who said, "Life is not a journey to the grave with the intention of arriving safely in a well-preserved body, but rather to skid in broadside, thoroughly used up, totally worn out, and loudly proclaiming, 'Wow, what a ride!' In other words, live life to the full. Throw your arms in the air more often rather than hanging on for grim death." Now, as it happens, I loathe actual funfair and theme park roller coasters. Ironic, huh? But I can fully get behind the concept of life having those ups and downs, sudden turns and moments that take my breath away. In fact, I want more of those moments that take my breath away. How many of us have spent years desperately gripping onto the safety bar, trying to ensure that our journey through life is as controlled, safe, and predictable as possible? We want to experience more, but some of us are scared. We want to join in, but often bail at the last moment. We want to soar, but clip our own wings. And we tell ourselves, that's okay, it's because I'm an introvert. The reality is that you can do whatever you choose to in life, and whatever your choice, please don't use your introversion as an excuse not to live life full out. It's not a hindrance, and once we understand it and own it, introversion is a real strength, and dare I say, a strength that the world needs far more of right now. I touched on this many times during the season, especially in our fear of failing and Groundhog Day episodes. Unlike the theme park roller coasters, we can't look ahead in our life and see the nature of the ride we're embarking on. We don't know how long it will last, how long it will take to climb to the high points, how scary and fast some of the drops will be, or what is around the next corner. So how do these phases of a roller coaster ride work as an analogy for a fulfilled and flourishing life? When we're focused on putting in the effort, applying ourselves to various roles in life and developing ourselves intentionally, the safety bar may serve a purpose. It's a support, a guide and a comfort. This part of the journey is not without a growing sense of anxiety, though, as we start to anticipate what is likely to be coming next. And this anticipation can stop us from being fully present and even lead to catastrophization. And, of course, there is an inevitability that at the top of the ride the only way is down. We can see it coming at the fun fair, but in life, we don't know when we've actually reached the top of any part of our journey. So this is where we really get to make some choices. Hang on and increase the tension in our bodies, or throw our arms in the air and enjoy the results of our efforts for a while before the next climb. Those who are bigger fans of the real rides than I tell me that often the anticipation is more terrifying than the actual descent. I'll take their word for it, yet what I do know is that this can be true of life too. And on reflection, there is at least one more element to a real fairground ride though, and that's the unexpected twists and turns. That's like navigating change, using the tools in our toolkits and dancing with the difficult. There will be times to hold on and times when we can let go and go with the flow. I probably don't need to tell you when you need to hold on. I bet you do that quite enough without my assistance. But here are 3 instances in which I keep a tighter control just in case. Managing overwhelm, staying aligned with my values and purpose, and maintaining nourishing relationships. As I said, I probably didn't need to remind you of those, but I did anyway. Now though, how about I suggest when it might be a good idea to try letting go, and maybe even throwing your arms in the air? I've no idea if you're saying yes or no, so I'm just going to go ahead anyway. Firstly, embracing new opportunities. I touched on this, surprisingly, in the episode about opportunities. I found that we notice more when we loosen our grip a little, when we stop trying to control the situation or the outcome. As John Burroughs said, leap and the net will appear. Now, I know that takes some cojones, and yet it usually works. Similarly, the full quote by Erin Hansen says it beautifully. There is freedom waiting for you on the breezes of the sky. And you ask, what if I fall? Oh, but my darling, what if you fly? I know that you have the skills and abilities aplenty, and it's time to trust yourself. The second place I think it's good to let go a little is when being vulnerable. How often do we hold back because we fear not the vulnerability itself, but the ramifications of our vulnerability? It's not unusual for we introverts to suffer a vulnerability hangover, and I know I won't be alone in having suffered this kind of hangover. The term was coined by the wonderful Brené Brown, known for her work on shame and guilt, and it refers to the intense feelings of discomfort or regret after we've shared something we consider too personal. And of course, being the overthinker that some of we introverts are, that hangover kicks in later on, sometimes in the night or even days after, when we want the ground to swallow us up. However, appropriate vulnerability is a powerful quality and a real strength. Plus, it enables other people to open up too. So ironic as it may seem, this is definitely a time to let go of the safety bar. What about one more? Okay, how about allowing yourselves to experience joy and success? We have a tendency to hide our light under a bushel and not appreciate what we've achieved. We can brush it off with oh, that's nothing. Well, it is something. We may even think that it's not okay to be proud of what we've achieved because society knocks us with big head or arrogant labels. And yes, I know that pride is one of the 7 deadly sins, but let's not forget there is good and bad pride, healthy and unhealthy. Whilst ego pride, the braggy type, often associated with a superiority complex, is not advisable, or indeed admirable in my opinion, humble pride is altogether different. It's quiet, incomparable, so neither superior nor inferior, and entirely unconcerned about others knowing what we've achieved. It arises when you live in alignment with your values, so you can be proud of yourself. And it's about being able to acknowledge your hard work honestly and bask in a moment of confidence of having done a good job or deed. We so need to normalise this. So as I close the curtains on season 20 and before the start of season 21, I urge you to take time to reflect on your flourishing journey thus far and notice where you're gripping too tightly to something or someone under the illusion of control. You then have the option to peel your hands off one finger at a time if necessary. Just imagine that now. Of course, as the title of this episode proclaims, we flourish on our own terms, and I love to be the bearer of good news, and that is that we can shift from frustrated to flourishing. You have the power to reframe your experiences, to rewrite your life script, and to replan your journey from here on in. When you choose to flourish on your own terms, there is an intent to flourish, and you'll soon see what I did there. If you enjoyed this episode as much as I did, then please subscribe, rate us and leave a comment, because we know that helps other people find the podcast. And if other people find us, other introverts can flourish.
You are listening to an Intentional Media Production podcast.